Hello, I'm Elspeth Mitchell from the University of Leeds.
And Lenka Vrablikova from the University of South Africa, UNISA, and thank you for watching our presentation. Out of Office, Mycorrhizal Encounters and the Art of Feminist Unlearning.
We need a space that is not designated as institutional space to be able to talk about the problems with and in institutions. Sarah Ahmed on Being Included, Racism and Diversity in Institutional Life, 2012.
What do you do when your world starts to fall apart? I'll go for a walk, and if I'm really lucky, I find mushrooms. Mushrooms pull me back into my senses, not just like flowers through their ripest colors and smells, but because they pop up unexpectedly, reminding me of the good fortune of just happening to be there. Then I know that there are still pleasures amidst the terrors of indeterminacy. Anna Tsing, The Mushroom at the End of the World, on the Possibility of Life in Capitalist Ruins, 2016.
In her book, What's the Use? On the Uses of Use, from 2019, Sarah Ahmed speaks of the practices and discourses that define the university, such as career progression or citation as walking on a path. The logics of the university are explored by Ahmed through the image of someone walking on a path, one that has been cleared and maintained for those who are most closely associated with white, masculine, heterosexual, cisgendered and non-disabled bodies dwelling in the global north and or west, this being at the expense of those who are not. This path exists because people have used it. The more a path is used, the more a path is used.
Attempts to break this logic of the university have re-emerged in past years all over the world. Take, for example, the nationwide student protests in South Africa, sparked by student and political activist Ngubane Makhwele throwing a bucket of excrements over a bronze statue of the 19th century British colonialist Cecil Rhodes on the campus of the University of Cape Town on the 9th of March 2015. Calling attention to racial injustices that define the post-apartheid South Africa, this protest had since then spread to the universities worldwide, demanding decolonization and transformation of curricula and hiring practices.
We seek to contribute to the efforts to make the university a more just journey by continuing the path taken during a series of feminist reading and mushroom hunting walks we first initiated in 2017 during a workers' strike at the University of Leeds, United Kingdom. The we here stands for two of us, researchers of theories and practices of feminism and visual culture, who are women and whose route through the world is shaped through and by our classed, urban, cisgendered and racialized privileges. Lenka is from a village in the Czech Republic.
Elspeth is from a city in the United Kingdom. The two countries, Czech Republic and the UK, also epitomize the polarity of attitudes towards fungi in European cultures, described in ethnomycological literature through the expressions mycophilia for Slavic culture and mycophobia for Anglo-Saxon culture. The UK and Czech Republic also epitomize the European geopolitical west-east axis, which together with the global north and south axis defines the unjust global distribution of power and resources.
It is from these singular and multiple positionings that our exploration of academic work, aesthetic and political practices and life with fungi takes on the task of learning to unlearn, formulated by Martina Tlostanova and Walter Mignolo as an epistemic response that enables a process of delinking from coloniality, the logic that drove European modern colonialism and which has been shaping the world ever since. Tlostanova and Mignolo follow the principle of learning to unlearn in order to relearn, articulated by Amoawai Tewazi, a university led by Indigenous intellectuals and activists in collaboration with non-Indigenous peoples in Ecuador, that seeks to foster relationships of sharing and care not only to other humans, but also to non-humans and the earth.
Following this lead, we propose mushroom foraging as feminist decolonizing pedagogy, what we call the art of feminist unlearning, and argue that encounters with the diverse ecology, unbounded biology, and highly variable biodiversity of fungi provides openings not only for aesthetic and intellectual innovation, but also political transformation. This potential we capture through a phrase, mycorrhizal encounters. We make these two propositions as an intervention in the rapidly growing interest in fungi, especially within English-speaking worlds of scientific and humanities research, entrepreneurship, popular culture, activism, and art.
But let us now rewind to 2017. In 2017, we were doctoral students partially dependent on employment as teaching assistants at the University of Leeds, and active in local struggles seeking to change exploitative and precarious forms of employment that lacked the basic worker rights such as sick pay and pensions. A local strike offered an officially recognised and legally protected framework led by the local branch of our trade union. Alongside the industrial action, Leeds University and Colleges Union invited contributions to an off-campus Teach Out, a programme of events developed by striking university workers, for which we devised an event we had been thinking about for a while, entitled Out of Office, Feminist Readings and Mushroom Hunting in Meanwood Park.
Out of office names, as you may have gathered, both the notifications set on our email during the withdrawal of our labor during the industrial action and the literal act of going out of the office. The aim, however, was not just to take our colleagues out of their offices to appreciate the English woodland, but also to provide a space and time for an interrogation of the current academic culture of corporate university and a reflection on how it shapes our intellectual and institutional working and living habits. Similarly, for us, mushroom hunting is not only a leisure activity or a way of obtaining edible objects considered to be gourmet treats difficult to buy in the UK, but also a critical, ethical and sensuous practice which makes us reconsider our individual and collective relationship to work, and feminist decolonizing work in particular. As a path infrequently traveled, and perhaps even trespassing the borders of what is traditionally considered direct political action, such as industrial strike, these walks also sought to situate the corporatization of the university and the struggles against it within different and broader narratives for social and environmental justice.
We took the title of the programme Teach Out quite literally, to teach, as in to show and demonstrate outside. Our Teach Out took us elsewhere, outside and beyond the academic institution and its paths and patterns of knowledge production. Searching for, picking, cutting and importantly smelling mushrooms would not traditionally be considered intellectual and academic activity. Yet simultaneously it is a highly specialised skill which allows you to get to know and relate to the world around you.
For us, learning about and with mushrooms is always partial, situated and in motion. If education is thought of as walking or being led on a path, as a journey in time, space and with others, as we can also hear from the word pedagogy, we were interested in learning from and with mushrooms about their shapes, colors, smells, their lives, habitats and interactions with their living and non-living surroundings. This also requires a particular form of attention manifested in the pacing of movements, a focus on sensation, as well as intense mental concentration and attentiveness to long and short-term changes in weather, conditions, and the geology and vegetation of the particular area. It also requires the cultivation of something we started to call the mushroom gaze, something akin to what feminist anthropologist Anna Tsing has described as the art of noticing.
Along with our mushroom ID books, raincoats, mushroom knives and baskets, we provided copies of excerpts from 2 texts to be read aloud by the group, which gathered in the entrance of Meanwood Park. One of them was Sorties, Out and Out Attacks, Ways Out Forays by Elaine Sixou from 1975. The group assembled, comprised of students, staff, their families and friends, and Lenka began to read from Siksu's famous essay.
If there is a somewhere else that can escape the infernal repetition, it lies in that direction, where it writes itself, where it dreams, where it invents new worlds. And that is where I go. I take books. I leave the real colonial space. I go away. Often I go read in a tree, far from the ground and the shit. I don't go and read just to read, to forget. No, not to shut myself up in some imaginary paradise. I'm searching. Somewhere there must be people who are like me, in their rebellion and in their hope, because I don't despair. If I myself shout in disgust, if I can't be alive without being angry, there must be others like me. I don't know who, but when I am big, I'll find them and I'll join them. I don't yet know where.
In this passage, Siksu proposes a way out from what she describes as the empire of the self-same. That is, a phallogocentric economy, which is deadly for everyone. She recalls the situation into which she was born and which she describes as unlivable. A situation of a Jewish girl in Algeria under French colonial rule in the wake of the Second World War. Reflecting on the experience of her childhood, Siksu describes how she nonetheless believed that there is a somewhere else, a community of readers, which, that time, she accessed by going to read in a tree.
We suggested interpreting this somewhere else, which is both a journey and a place, not only in relation to desire, politics and literature, but also in relation to education. The book The Newly Born Woman, where the essay appears alongside an essay by Catherine Clement, was published a year after Siksu founded Études Féminines at the University of Paris 8, the first feminist program in a European university, at the time located in the Bois de Vincennes, the Vincennes Woods, a feminist program founded among the trees.
Simultaneously, we suggested to read the description of somewhere else as going to read in a tree, not as a metaphoric or even literal romantic escape to seemingly apolitical nature from real politics, but as a move which allows for novel conceptualizations of feminist work, spaces and collectives.
Our own search for this so-called somewhere else continued by following mushrooms. The walk began tracing a path up the ridge high above Meanwood Beck, following the path down over a bridge and into the hollies. Mushrooms appear unexpectedly or contingently, thus enacting a literal disruption. There were moments when we were reading or discussing a part of the text and someone would spot a mushroom under some leaf litter nearby. Despite October being a little late in season, we soon found jelly ears, also known as black fungus, other bracket mushrooms such as a birch polypole, lots of common earth balls and puffballs, the latter proving especially exciting when touched to release a cloud of spores, and a solid black mushroom named King Alfred's cake.
Like Anna Singh, whom we quoted in the opening, for us, mushroom hunting provides a space to reconsider work and its values, what is and what is not considered productive labour, in relation to a particular geopolitical context. Who picks certain kinds of mushrooms and when and how and why tells you a lot about a place and its politics.
Thus, for instance, during our walk, one of the participants recalled reading stories about fungi foraging gangs of Eastern Europeans raiding British forests. These stories, which were appearing in the media 5 years ago, that is in 2015, were employing language reminiscent of racist and classist condemnations of tribal communities. Relating these newspaper stories to the current political climate in Britain, the group discussed how 2015 was also the year when the debates around Brexit, where fear particularly of non-white immigrants and foreigners stealing resources and jobs, played a decisive role, had, thanks to an increasing rift in the UK's Conservative Party, gained renewed visibility in public debates.
Another mushroom we encountered during the walk in late October was the striking purple amethyst deceiver. The amethyst deceiver is a mycorrhizal mushroom, which means that it lives in mutually beneficial relationship with a plant, in this case trees such as beech. They are connected through their roots underground. For fungi, this network of roots is their main body part and is called mycelium. Mycorrhizal mycelium and organisms that form associated networks such as slime moulds with their protoplasmic strands have in recent times gained unprecedented attention. For slime moulds, for example, this is a result of a growing awareness of the sophisticated problem-solving behaviours achieved without a central nervous system such as a brain, for instance. Slime moulds and fungi are becoming more significant due to the way in which humans, such as scientists, philosophers, entrepreneurs, activists and artists, apply these organisms to the world, and even more importantly to its future, as these organisms are seen to promise hope or even salvation. For example, in 2008, American mycologist and entrepreneur Paul Stamets gave a TED Talk entitled 6 Ways Mushrooms Can Save the World. Stamets' work on mycelium, particularly in terms of mycorremediation of ecosystems, has been hugely influential and even led to a main character being named after him in the recent Star Trek franchise, Star Trek Discovery, a series which explores a mycelium network as a discrete subspace domain connecting every part of the multiverse.
In an article exploring the acclaimed science fiction writer Octavia Butler's research on slime molds, Amy Bang has been critical of such positions. In their article, they argue slime molds are, and I quote, swept up into a culture of optimization and risk aversion that celebrates its efficiency rather than its queer characteristics. Slime mold gets oriented towards models of competition when entrepreneurial technoscience asks it to perform spectacularized performances of problem-solving efficiency and adaptability. End of quote. In the current era of financialization and its attendant fields of probabilization and preemption, slime mold, Fusarium polycephalum, has been made to find the shortest path between 2 points in a labyrinth and to create layouts of various systems such as Tokyo's railway network or motorways in the USA, but also to help predict patterns of migration from Mexico to USA.
Fungi and slime moulds, then, can be put to many uses. But these uses may not just be about finding the quickest and most efficient route. During a local coronavirus lockdown where I live in Leeds, UK, a vast white slime mould appeared over 2 or 3 days on an old rotten log I meet on my daily walking route. On these days, the slime mould made me literally stop in my tracks, to pause in excitement and wonder. It was a much needed sight in which to observe change and transformation in such repetitive days. To repeat Anna Singh's words from the opening epigraph, as they pop up unexpectedly, they remind me of the good fortune of just happening to be there. Then I know that there are still pleasures amidst the terror of indeterminacy. In this encounter with difference and experiencing of a sort of grounding, we can see alternative uses and paths that might emerge with slime mould and fungi.
It is this potential that, as Bang argues, attracted Octavia Butler to research slime molds and other colony organisms as a means of envisioning models of collective action, decentered modes of self-organizing, and systems of collaborative production. Bang explores Butler's encounter with slime molds as an opening onto thinking about alternative, that is, feminist and queer, ontologies and systems of organizing that are explored in the Xenogenesis trilogy.
Similarly to the way in which Bang acknowledges Octavia Butler's interest and trepidation in her encounters with colony organisms, these systems of power that all too easily confuse emergence for colonization, we are attentive to follow Bang's call for keeping decolonial thought in the frame of queer feminist inquiry. In an Armedian fashion, Bang is concerned with how fungi and slime moulds become oriented in certain directions, called upon to follow a certain path. Returning to our invocation of mycelial networks and communities of mycorrhizal fungi strung through soil, while the radical mycology image of mycorrhizal relations jubilates in the blurring of individual boundaries and non-hierarchical structures of collectivity, Butler and Bang's insights give pause on the liberatory potential of fungi.
This is why we consider our engagement with fungi as that which allows for a critical reconsideration of individual and collective art of feminist unlearning, as a creative practice that allows us to rethink the possibility of working and living inside and outside educational and cultural institutions, that is, as mycorrhizal encounters. By adopting this approach, we aim not only to focus our attention on the lives of fungi and their relationships with their others, but to make visible and thus able to problematize our relationship to them, and in particular its ethical, political, and affective dimensions. It is from this standpoint that we understand these encounters to be partial, situated, embodied, and in entangled practice in motion, and as embodying a possibility for feminist unlearning on the journey for a more just world, both inside and outside institutions.
Thank you for listening, and we look forward to the Q&A.